Welcome to Deal Nation. On the show today, we have Mitzi Dyane. She is a very successful investor based out of Texas and the founder of Swift Sell Properties. How are you, Mitzi?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I are part of a big mastermind group, and I love what you do. You make a bunch of money in the business of the tiniest of houses, and you really help other investors learn how to do that, to really leverage mobile homes and affordable living in order to, I don't know, do good and also do well in their lives, which I think is an amazing combination. So definitely wanted to kind of deep dive into how you went down that path and how you're bringing others down that path. But definitely want to get a little bit of background. We love to do an origin story here on Deal Nation. So how did you get involved in real estate initially?
So I tried buying my first house at 16. Um, for real, a true story.
Yeah,
They laughed me out of there because I didn't know what I was doing.
yeah.
And then when I was 18, I tried again because they told me I couldn't till I was 18. And then they were like, you have to have credit. So then I did again at 19 and I bought my first house. That
Amazing.
became my first rental. And my first flip, I actually bought a repo double wide and put it on half an acre.
The only thing
And
I had at 19, excuse my language, is a really shitty pickup truck that leaked everywhere. So that's impressive.
I wanted stability so bad in my life that I was like trying to make it happen as soon as I could. But we all have different journeys and, or,
Yeah.
so, and then, um, the reason why I got into it full time though, so the whole time since I was 19, I was always looking at properties. I was always interested in real estate. I think I started reading the real estate section of the newspaper when I was 10. I was a nerd. I was not your normal child. I was reading medical encyclopedias. I was like trying to figure out how this body works and how everything works around me. And so at 16, I had noticed that like if you bought in certain areas that properties always went up. And I was like, oh, this is the way to go. And so at 22, I bought my second house. And I did the same thing as I did in the first one, but it was a real house. It wasn't a mobile homes are real houses too, but I was like happy to have like a brick home.
Hmm.
And I bought that one, and that was a foreclosure. And I did it all on my own, and I flipped that one too. And then I owner financed it. I rented it out for 8 years, and then I owner financed it, and then I sold the note later. Um, but yeah, so I had been doing it part time, and then about 9 years ago, I was reading Get Rich, How to Think and Grow Rich again for
Hmm.
my second time. And I was like,
Yeah.
why am I not doing real estate full time? So for 10 years, I was a financial advisor.
Okay.
That's what I did for a living. And well, I worked in finance. I eventually started managing the financial advisors. And I had to approve every investment that went through the brokerage. And that was over 17 brokerage branches
Yeah.
at the time. So of Wells Fargo advisors. And so I got to see a lot of investments. And I was like, I was reading the book again and I was like, why am I not doing real estate full time? And I went ahead and just quit everything I was doing and hired a mentor, I think within 2 days of reading the book. And then within 23 days, made my first $50,000 deal. And I was like, all right,
Whoa, hold on, back up. You made a $50,000 deal within 23 days.
of me starting. Yeah.
I'm not going to tell anyone on the Launch Control Lite subscriber package that story. It's just it's gonna
Should
it's
we
gonna
start
set
over?
the wrong expectations for all of them. No, that's amazing though, because I do want to hear the details because it does happen, right? Like there are
Mhm.
people that, we always tell people at Launch Control to give themselves at least a 90-day ramp to really
Yeah.
fill up their pipeline of leads, have the discovery call conversations, go through the process of transaction coordination and dispo and all of that, and really see the profits of your efforts to really know how well this is going to work. But I do certainly know people that have made, $100,000 or more in their first 90 days. It's just that's exceptional. That's not the norm. So how did you give us a little bit of details on that 23-day 50K deal?
Well, I do think that you do have to have certain skills, and I had already developed those skills. So I was a
Sure.
cold caller for a telemarketing company when I was 18, and I was in the top
Okay.
three sales. I
Yeah.
ranged from 1 to 3 in the top sales. So I already had that cold calling, selling on the phone, and I was selling Wall Street Journal over the phone. That wasn't the
Okay.
easiest thing to sell.
Yeah.
So I already had certain skills developed before I started this real estate. So what I did is I hired a mentor. He was an attorney, because I know mentors will fast forward your track. I had no
Yeah.
money. Like I had a little bit of savings left over, and
Hmm.
I had bald tires, no registration. I was in a bad space because I had just quit myself as a financial advisor, and I became a wellness counselor. And then all this stuff just happened, and it just like wiped me out. I
Yeah.
bought my house in cash before I quit, and I was thinking I was going to set myself up. But anyways, I was like, I had my last 5K. It was like in an account that I had like saved up over there, and I used that 5K, my last 5K. So anybody who's like, oh, I don't want to use the last bit of my money, how bad do you want this? But I'm not saying
Yeah.
do that, but I wanted it, and so I spent that last bit of money I had and hired a mentor. He told me not to expect it in the first 30 days. And I was like, you don't know who I am. I'm a very
Yeah.
strong minded kind of woman. So if I want to do something, I'm going to make it happen. And I just have that confidence in myself. So I think that's important. But what I did is I started driving for dollars, and I was
Hmm.
driving code violations, and I was looking
Okay.
for vacant ones. And then I found a few, started just like really doing my private investigation skills to find the owners, because these were ones that you couldn't find right away. So I
Yeah.
was like, well, if people can't find these right away, that means other people aren't fighting over these leads. So I focused on the ones you couldn't find right away.
Yeah.
And I found 3 sisters who hated themselves, who hated each other. And it was an inherited property, been vacant for 7 years, had a 331,000 Merc lien on it, had like
Oh.
7,000 in taxes out. And uh, they actually hung up on me 5 times before I got the deal. So, but I
Yeah.
was like, I can help them. I don't know why they won't let me help them. So I just kept on calling them. And I was
Yeah.
like, I can help you. And what got it was actually me telling them, because I was going about it the wrong way. I was like focused on how much money to give them. Now, I
Hmm.
didn't know not to offer them only this much, but I only offered them $500 for the house. No one told me not to offer that. So I did.
Yeah.
Ignorance can be bliss. And they were like, that's way too low. So then I was like, okay, 1,500. And it's not a $1,500 house. And so they were like hanging up on me, and I'm like, dude, you need this. And so I called them back over and over. And finally, on the last call, what I said was like, okay, how about this? Because they had too many liens and taxes. The house was like basically worthless. Um, and I was like, okay, you can choose to walk away, but just hear me out on this part. Walk away, get nothing, or accept this, get the $1,500. You guys can get some Louis Vuitton purse, some expensive shoes you've never been able to do. You can take yourself on a spa retreat. You can really take care of yourself with this money that you could have made on this, or you can just walk away. They're like, what time do we need to be there tomorrow to sign? And so I had to get them on that girly stuff, thinking of things that
Yeah.
they probably never had to be able to do, not the money, but what they could do with the money. And so I got that deal. And then the next deal, I did another 50K too. And it was also a similar thing. And people were offering her more money, and she still went with me because I had more options for her. And I went about like caring what the result was for her. And so she was like, even though you're the one, you didn't offer me the most, I liked you the most. So I'm going to go with you. And I made
Yeah. I
15K.
mean, it's a that is a story that we hear really, really often, and I think that even some of the biggest names in the business had to kind of come to that realization that you're solving problems for people, and they wanted to start with the price. They wanted to start with the deal, and the deal is really for you. It's the solution that's for them, right? And so, like, going in and being able to read the room and being able to maybe the Louis Vuitton approach was the right approach for that particular homeowner, but I'm guessing it is a very different solution for the next 50K. And
Yeah.
your ability to just read the room and then solve the problem that needs to be solved, that's it's really easy to say, but it's not the easiest thing to do, right? And so it's a skill that is important for investors to kind of hone, because it is what closes the deals. Like, not that many get closed by just a simple, I'll give you 60% under the value of the home. What do you think? Like that, you got to get
Yeah.
past that.
Yeah, it's not really ever about money. It's about how people feel. So if
Yes.
you can get to them feeling a peace of mind, them feeling better, that's what everybody wants. Money to feel better. Everything has to do with wanting to feel better. So whenever
Yeah.
you can figure out what their real thing is, it's like, what would actually make them feel better? It may not be the money. It's the result of what the money could give them or make them feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with this journey, you eventually pivoted into the mobile home space. So, what first got your attention about mobile homes in particular, as an asset class, but also just as we were just talking about, as an opportunity to be kind of a solution provider for people?
Okay, so about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, with my experiences being in finance, I can see like the writing on the wall more than some people do. And what we used to say was, if it's already on the news, it's noise. It's already happened. And you're
Oh, I
six
like
months.
that. That's good. Yeah.
And so I look at what's really happening, and I noticed interest rates were going up, insurance was going up, taxes were going up, housing prices were up. And I was like, first off, the housing prices shouldn't be this high. This is kind of like more of a bubble. So I was like, the housing prices are going to go a little bit lower, while taxes, insurance, and interest are still going to be higher. I'm like, affordable housing. People are going to need affordable housing. What are people going to need? And so in November 2022, I just completely shifted my entire business. I already started doing a little bit of mobile, but I just shifted. Well, I still do single family and apartments and some commercial, but I shifted most of my business to mobile homes because I was like, people need affordable housing. I remember being a young mom and needing that mobile home that I had.
Yeah.
That's what I could afford. And I was proud of having my own home. So I understand the way the people are thinking that are in that space of why they need it. And apartments, I didn't like apartments. So I liked being in my own home. And I was like, well, I'll just start doing mobile homes. And so I started, just telling other people that I was doing mobile homes, started getting some mobile home deals in. People that didn't want mobile homes, I was selling them off their land. And they, like one mobile home, the people just didn't want it, and the wholesaler didn't know what to do with it, and they wanted only the land. So he was like, you can just have it. I'm like, you sure? I sold that for $42,000, like
Wow.
an unwanted mobile home. And people aren't emotionally attached to mobile homes like they are a single family either. So it provides affordable housing. I can get them really cheap or sometimes free. So I can owner finance them out if I want to and create myself passive income, or I
Yeah.
can get a lump sum of money. And so that's what I teach my students too, is basically wholesale a few, get some money. So you don't have to spend your own money, get some money in your pocket from these wholesale deals. And within your first 5, try to buy one that you can cash flow off of.
Yeah.
Instead of just getting this hamster wheel that a lot of wholesalers get into, let's get into like creating yourself that passive income. And so yeah, so that's
So
what
I definitely want to talk about the owner financing route, because I find that really interesting as a way to build wealth and to build up a portfolio. But before I get there, so like the example that you just gave, right? Like the guy who had land didn't
Mhm.
want the mobile home, and you were able to flip it for, I think you said, $42,000. But
Yeah.
first, you know, he needed it off of his land. So was the end buyer the person that came and cleared it off of the land? Did you have a window of time to execute that deal? Like, how did you make the seller happy in terms of getting rid of something he didn't want and then transitioning that over to the buyer?
So I found out what the seller wanted, and that was just get it off their land and how much time they had. So I had at least 30 days.
Hmm.
And I found a buyer that would move it and
Okay,
pay me for it. So I just did the in between. I just connected, and yeah. Is
amazing. So
that what you were asking?
yeah, that's exactly what I was asking because, a lot of people, if a lot of people going into this aren't necessarily going to be boots on the ground, and
Mhm.
it seems to be there can be extenuating circumstances that don't fall into like your normal contractor relationships if you're doing fix and flips, and so even someone who has some experience in real estate may not have the kind of connections and experience needed to get certain actions taken care of in the mobile or affordable home space. Does that track or
Yeah, well, I didn't have any connections. Like,
yeah,
I just started. Like, I've always been somebody who's like, "I'm gonna start and figure it out."
yeah,
Like, I don't need to figure it all out right away because
yeah,
you're gonna learn the most by doing it. And
yeah,
so, like, I just say yes to stuff. Like, I did
yeah,
a now this is another, if anybody cares about money, I think I did over a $400,000 deal and didn't even know what I was doing. Like, I just said yes. Like,
yeah,
so I think you say yes and then you figure it out.
yeah,
So what I did is right after I said yes, I started putting it out there trying to find buyers, and I started talking to movers on like, what's this at? So I started creating my like I call it my external team. So I usually get a spreadsheet and I just start writing down the people that I'm talking to, trying to figure out who I need to talk to in the business. And then I'll talk to other
yeah.
people in the business, ask them who else I should talk to. So I started doing that. And yeah, I'd found the buyer that had everything anyways, but during that process, I was able to build up a list of movers and buyers and that good stuff.
No,
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I know it's somewhat common wisdom that you just have to leap, right? Like
Yeah.
it's part of being an entrepreneur. There's only so much prep work that you can do. I mean, it's even the same. You used to work in a corporate environment. It can be the same in a corporate environment too. Like you can prep and prep and prep, but until you release a product or release a service or whatever, you're not going to know what needs to be fixed. You're not going to know, what you're not going to know what's going to go wrong until it does, right? Or what's going to go right until it does. So they're the same thing, but it's I applaud the natural entrepreneurs, and you meet a lot of them in this business. The people that wanted to buy their first home at 16 when nobody else was even thinking of that. There's that sort of leap path in life seems to just be intrinsic for certain people, and it's very inspiring to see because there's definitely others, myself included, that can be over preppers, and so to see people just go, yeah, I made a leap, I made 400 grand doing it, I figured it out along the way. That's the kind of those are the kind of stories that the planners need to go ahead and make that leap that's necessary.
Well, I could be a planner in the areas of my life that I'm like scared. I plan.
Mhm.
I will
Yeah,
overanalyze, I will overplan, and then it will take me so long to get started because I'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to do it wrong." And then I know this other side of me that's like, I leap at other things. And I'm like, okay, obviously there's some fear that I need to work through here. And
yeah,
I do this, I actually teach an emotional wellness class too, because I like
okay,
had to learn this stuff and about myself, like so I could quit doing that.
yeah. uh Going back to kind of the tiers, I suppose, for mobile. So this like what when people are doing distressed properties, you're looking at markets and neighborhoods, really, right? And so and of course, like distressed profiles, but houses are grouped together, right? With mobile, what's the spread between a mobile unit that's on a piece of land, like almost like a rural piece of land, and is this removable thing, versus how many that you deal with that are actually in mobile home parks, or even something that's a little bit outside of that, like in an RV park or something like that that might be a little bit left field.
So I like them all because there's so many different exit strategies. Um,
Hmm.
so with the mobile home parks, I like to find those really cheap and owner finance those. And usually with owner finance, what I'm trying to do is like also help families get into homes. So I try to
Yeah.
keep that down payment like 5K, 10K or lower. And that way they can move in and have their own home. And I stay a little bit under rents with it's a rent to own that I do. And
Hmm.
so those are more my like passive income ones, the ones that are in parks.
Yeah.
And then, but I've also flipped in parks. I've also helped students flip in parks. And one he flipped, I think he should have made like 40, but I think he only made 25. And then this other lady, she is selling at 105. She bought it at 30 and put like 15 into it. So it's gonna be like 69 or a little bit less after. What's cool is we don't have closing costs. You got a
Yeah.
$55 fee to do title paperwork. So whatever I say is numbers, that's pretty close to net. So she's selling that one for over 100K. And then the ones on land, they can be really nice. I my ones that I flip on land, as long as I fix them up, I make at least 50K, but I've done 115 and I've done 101, and that was my net on the flip price. So
And when
you
you
can make
say as long as you fix them up, like
yeah, because
what's a rehab cost on something like that?
yeah, so it just depends. Like, are you moving the mobile home onto the land, and do you need to develop the land and do the septic, water line, and electric loop and all that meter loop? If you have to do that, of course, it's going to be a little more expensive. But I have one right now that I'm doing that with currently. So I moved a 2000, I think it's a 2000 double wide on a little bit over half an acre, and we're going to be spending $47,000 on rehab. I
Hmm.
got it for 110 for everything together. And then we're going to be selling it for about 235 afterwards.
Okay.
And so I'll be all in. I think I was saying like maybe like 165 is about what I was thinking I'll be all in at, and then selling it for the 235. So that still has a pretty good spread on that. And I'm an
Yeah.
agent, so I'm going to be the one selling it on the market.
Okay.
Um, but that is one of my smaller flip amounts. So like I like
Yeah.
to make a little bit more than that. But on the mobile home flips, it's easy to average 50K or more. I probably shouldn't say that. I don't know. But for me and for my friends who also done mobile home flipping, the 50K as a minimum on each flip is pretty normal.
No, I mean that's great, and it sounds like what you're able to give people just in the affordable housing space is a really achievable ramp up. Where if, like you said, you start with a couple of wholesaling deals in which I'm guessing the turnaround time is fairly quick on these in terms of finding a buyer, right? So
Sometimes,
yeah.
yeah.
So you make some cash flow wholesaling, and then you're, maybe focus on some of the parks and get some owner finance deals so that you have monthly income coming in from that. Take the excess monthly income to flip a property, make 50K off of it, flip another, make 50K. You can start to do some of the bigger stuff. And then you might even have enough cash flow that if you really wanted to move into single family home or move into multifamily, you'd have the cash flow to do it. So it's kind of uh, a, a a small, like, for we were just talking about making a leap, right?
Yeah.
And there are big leaps and little leaps, and this feels like a way for the planners and the worriers to make little leaps that'll get you to that big leap space fairly quickly.
Yes, yes. Because like what I tell people to start with, now I said the 47,000 rehab, that's been my highest rehab for a mobile home. It's usually between 13,000 and 35,000 for rehab
Okay.
amount.
Yeah.
So that's my highest so far. But the mobile homes in the parks. So my students, they've been focusing more on the mobile homes in the parks and unwanted mobile homes on land. So we're getting them like for free or for barely any money to move. So I'm focused more on the really, really cheap ones. And that way they can find it and then make like 10K off of it. That seems to be the averages. They're making like about 10K off of those. Sometimes a little bit more because it's easy to sell a house for 15K in a mobile home park that's ready to go. Um,
Hmm.
so focusing on that first, yeah, and then making your 10K, and sometimes you can make the 5, 10K as the down payment, and then keep your monthly residual income, your passive income as well. Well, you made that money, and if you wanted to, you can buy another one and do that. Yes, and then you'll have like what, $1,000 or $1,500. The average so far for each mobile home in a park is about $500. Actually, the minimum so far has been about 575, but it's
Okay.
575 to about $1,000 per home.
Per
Most people
home,
don't
and
even
for
count it as
what
a
are the
family.
full terms? So how many years are we talking about in terms of going?
It just depends.
Okay.
So I have one that's for 7 years. I have one that's for 12 years. I have another one that's for 20 years. So it
20
really
years.
just depends. Yeah, I've got one in
Okay.
Corpus that I own that I did a 20-year note on because it's a 2015, and I
Yeah.
make $605 off that one per month.
Okay. So if we're talking about just doing kind of back of the napkin math, if you've got somewhere around 8 to 10 of these that are being owner financed, most people will be able to cover all of their life expenses off of 8 to 10 of these, and then anything extra is just growth money, right? So
Oh,
like, because I
oh yeah.
know, yeah, because I know that that's a big concern for a lot of people, right? Like, yeah, yes, I'd love to build generational wealth. I'd love to get, to do very, very well at this. But first of all, I just need to replace my job. But first of
Mhm.
all, I just need to make sure that I can take care of my family and pay my own mortgage and whatever. And so, at 8 to 10 doors can basically pay all of your life expenses for 5 years, right? Like
Yes,
that's a
exactly.
pretty good deal, you know?
Yeah. And what's great about it too is that it doesn't have to take you that long to do that.
Yeah, so like for students that you're working with, like realistically, if they're hustling and they're listening to you and following your program, let's say because five doors would give people a ton of breathing room, right?
Yeah.
Like not even 8 to 10. Just to get your first five. What's a fair owner financing window to get your first five?
What do you mean? I want to
Like
make sure.
how long do you think people should expect that to take? Like
It depends on
one
how much
one year, 18 months, something like that. Like what's the ramp to get to five typically?
1 year is plenty.
Plenty.
So
Okay.
let's say they're just doing, well, I guess if they're doing it really slowly and they're only doing one a month,
Yeah.
um, or like they're doing one wholesale and the next month they buy one to owner finance. Like even if they're doing it every other month, that's still six in a year that they could have gotten. And it really isn't that hard to do that. Um, so it just depends on how much they're trying. The
Okay.
thing that I noticed with people, um, a lack of focus. So like
Mm,
everything glitters in this business, and so like they'll be like, "Well, I'm doing mobile homes, but this apartment wholesaler is talking all this game, and now this
yeah.
person's talking all this game." Like if you're going to do mobile homes, I also want to mention that you do get more tax benefits if you're like, from what I understand, with the single family and with multifamily and all of that. Now I buy mobile home parks because I'm in mobile homes. So like, but you don't want to, you can just stick with that, but it could be a great step up into
Yeah.
like other stuff. Um, but it just depends on, are you going to be focused on this to build it? Because if you're super focused, you could probably do that in just a matter of like a few months.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a really rapid transition for people that are in a positive way. It's a really
Mhm.
fast way to get kind of the proven use case that you want out of it. Is that what I really like about the owner financing option, because there's something very similar, I think, in land acquisition, which is something that a lot of other launch control users do, where they're buying plots of land, and then they're setting terms and owner financing them, and it gives them that steady monthly income that
Mhm.
takes when you make that leap and you flip a property, or you wholesale a property, or wholesale, whether it's a vacant piece of land or a home, it's a great influx of cash. But it always comes to the question of, well, when's the next deal coming? And I have to find my next deal. Like, this money isn't going to last forever, right? And so when you
Mhm.
have that, if when you have that side pipeline or additional pipeline that is feeding you steady monthly income. So even if your wholesaling deals or your fix and flip deals are taking longer than anticipated or have a little bit of a dip, you can still take a deep breath and know that you've got some money coming in, which I think is something that a lot of investors out there will really gravitate towards because it's just comfort and security, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So one of the speaking of land investors, you know, one of the sort of tenets of people investing in land is no tenants, no toilets. So with what with the affordable housing side of things, have you experienced headaches with tenants and toilets? Has it been especially owner financing, or has it been a fairly smooth ride for you?
No, I don't like tenants or toilets either. That's actually why I do the owner finance or rent to own. So they're basically the owners. So you can't call me about your AC going out or your toilet going out or anything. I'm like, even in my mobile home park, I owner finance those mobile homes on there too. So it's just the lot rent that I'm interested in. And of course the mortgage, but I'll be the bank. I don't like being a landlord. I've been a landlord for a while, but I decided I don't like that as much.
Okay, so that's an interesting distinction. So you basically hold title until all terms are paid off, but you're not a landlord.
Yep.
You're basically just the bank. So if they have plumbing issues, it's on them. Electricity issues, it's on them. They agreed to that in terms.
Yeah. And well, mobile home parks too. If you're owning a house in there and you're wanting to rent it out, a lot of mobile home parks aren't for that. They want them to be owner occupied. So they
Yes.
don't allow subleasing because if you own the home and then you rent it out to someone else, you're now subleasing that lot rent or that lot to that your tenant. And so mobile home parks don't usually like that. Some will do it, but a lot of them won't. So I just was like, well, it doesn't matter because I don't want to be I don't want to be a landlord anyways. So I'll
Yeah.
just rent to own. And so now they're the ones leasing from the mobile home park, not me. I don't have to worry about them not paying the mobile home park or anything. And yes, I do keep title. I treat it like a vehicle because unless it's tied to land, it's treated more like that titling
Hmm.
wise. So like you, or at least in Texas, we don't get our vehicle titles until we have the car paid off.
Sure.
So I
Yeah,
do
no,
the same.
no, it makes sense. And I think you mentioned in a private conversation that we had that if there is a problem and there is a default on payment, it's easier to get your asset back because it isn't actually classified as a permanent structure.
Yeah. Unless it's on land, I don't have to foreclose. I repossess. Yeah.
Yeah, repossessed.
Luckily, I haven't had to do it yet. Hmm.
Good, 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 good. So in terms of like scaling this thing up, you know, I talked about getting to, or we talked about getting to say like 8 to 10 gets people that, you know, somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a month in passive income or consistent income, enough to pay most people's life expenses, right? But you start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that becomes, you know, a lot to manage. So are you managing the influx of all of these rents and the terms of all of these rents yourself, or are you outsourcing part of that?
You can do a third party servicing company for that. Because I'm in this field now, like I have been making friends with dealers, and these dealers actually do their own in-house financing. So they're basically doing
Hmm.
the same thing I'm doing, but on a way bigger scale. And so I just got like 4 million in notes to sell off for one of these
Whoa.
dealerships. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I'm gonna make like 20% on that. It's not bad.
Yeah. No,
So
it's amazing.
that but it's all been third party serviced, his too. So you can get third party servicers to do that and you don't have to worry about it. You'll just collect the
Okay.
money.
So, you know, we've talked a lot about how much hustle you're putting into this. You know, like I know that you just said you've got like 4 million in notes that you're going to be able to basically flip for 20%. You've got the multiple you know, RV parks. You've got mobile units within RV parks. You've got deals that are coming off of vacant land. I think you mentioned you've also got some single family homes and apartments that are part of your portfolio, and your coaching. So all of this feels like, if you just list it all out as bullet points, that feels like an 80-hour week. But I'm guessing you're not working 80-hour weeks. So
I don't
what's
like
your work?
working.
Yeah, so what's the work-life balance situation? Because that's another thing that people get into this for, obviously, is work-life balance.
Yeah, I think you decide how you want things to happen for you. And that's what I do. I decide how I want it to happen for me. Um, I don't own any apartments. I wholesale them. And
Okay.
then I only own one mobile home park. So I do want to clear, but
Okay.
I'm looking for more. But yeah, I the mobile home park kind of came along with the mobile home. So it's like I allow what comes to me and I respond to it. So it's not like I'm trying to force anything. I don't believe in forcing anything and like having this kind of like keeping my vibes high so I can like
Yeah.
attract good things into my life and I get to decide which ones do I want. And it really works for me. I know some people are like, oh wow, she's going to woo woo, but it's the reticular activating system pretty much turning on. You decide what you want, you become intentional, and then your mind starts seeing these things more often, and then you get to choose. So my work day, I work in the morning. I usually do this kind of stuff. And then I'm usually done by 2. And
Okay.
then about 3 days a week, I just don't really work. I'll answer people over the phone and that kind of stuff. But recently I have been a little bit busier because my assistant and sales manager, I was hiring a new one. So I had a little more on my plate. But even with that, um, I along the way I had to learn what produces and what's busy work. So I can put the busy work to the side now. When I used to be like, "Oh, I got to do this, I got to do this." I've learned
Hmm.
that if you don't worry too much, a lot of your problems, I think Calvin Coolidge said it, like you can have 10 problems rolling at you and 9 are going to fall in the ditch before it even gets to you.
Yeah.
So like I try not to
That's a great
stress.
thing. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll work on the things that I know are gonna bring in the money and bring in the relationships and all that. And I'm big on relationships too. So
Yeah.
that really helps out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you spend kind of a famously low amount of money on marketing because you've really been able to get zero, right? Still to this day, zero, right?
You're
Yeah, which is crazy because like you're in, absolutely like the top 1% of investors, and most of the other top one percenters that I know are spending like 40, 50 grand a month, if not more, in their marketing budgets. They're doing TV ads and radio spots and text marketing and cold calling and direct mail and all of it, right? And it's all
Mm.
this massive marketing mechanism in order to get the deal flow in. But you're hitting those kind of numbers with, finishing your day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and zero marketing. So
Yeah.
that's an incredible thing to aim for if you can. And this coming from someone that works for a marketing company, a marketing services company, right? Like being able to do that in a way that you're, because if you look at it from the scope of running a business, if you can eliminate the necessity to spend on certain things, right? You don't have an office, you have a very low, if no, marketing budget, you have a small team, you're outsourcing to third party resources. um, it becomes a lot easier to manage. I think you said in the past you managed big teams in like a corporate space, so you know how much like thought and energy that takes out of your day when you have to do that. And so I'm sure that was part of your intention, was to not recreate having a 20 plus person team or whatever. I forget the number it was that you were managing, but not
Well,
recreate that.
yeah, when I was in finance, I was managing 250 financial advisors and
Ooh.
2,500 client associates. But
Yeah, that's a lot.
I when I got into real estate, I at first was doing it kind of small, but I was making big money compared to like a lot of people. So because in my second year is when I did that over $400,000 deal, and it was just like there was just a lot of things coming in for me, and so I I'm big on like like the manifestation stuff. So like
Hmm.
it really works. But I decided to do it. So I hired another coach and he was like going to help me scale. And so he was like, you got to get marketing, you got to start hiring more people, you got to start doing all this. So I got that. I got the CRMs, I got the marketing, I got all of that going. I got the office. And I was spending $25,000 a month just in overhead.
Yeah.
And it was nice. I mean, I had deals coming in, we were doing things, but I actually made more money without all of that. And I had less
Yeah.
deals, but I made more money and I had more freedom. So I
Yeah.
felt like when I had the office and everything else, and it works for some people, you got to decide what you want for yourself. I felt like I kind of created my own prison, and that's what it wasn't what I was trying to do. Because now I had to
Yeah.
be at the office and I had to manage a
Yeah.
team and I had to do all this stuff that I was like, I was already doing this for somebody else. Why am I now? Why did I put myself in that same situation that I was trying to get out of? And so then I just decided, actually, it was COVID that helped out. And then I just shut down the office. I just was like, I told my team, let's just JV. I've taught you guys enough. And then a lot of wholesale companies started out of my team because of that. So now I can just like, I have all these relationships with people that I've developed that are really good at what they do now because I trained them. No, I'm kidding. But
Yeah.
so I know I can work with them. But yeah, I decided I just didn't want all that. But everybody's different. You get to decide how you want your business to run, and you run it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've met with gone different places around the country and met with some of like the really really big investors in the space in their offices, and for some of them, it's honestly it's a great dynamic. You know, they've got
Mhm.
lunch brought in for the staff, and they've got their podcast recording room, and there's just a lot of like big excited energy in the room because that's part of who they are, and they really like that environment. You know,
Mhm.
for I'm kind of like you. That would feel like a lot to manage for me. That would probably stress me out, not make me amped up or excited or ready to go into my day. But for
Mhm.
some of them, in it, if you know yourself, like you said, and that's what you want, chase that, right? But what you did, I think, what you did in taking a step back is it's an underrated thing in investing or in entrepreneurship in general. And we talked about making a leap forward. Making a leap back sometimes is important too. Of just being like, this got a little bigger than I wanted it to. This got a little bit more cumbersome than I wanted it to. I really kind of liked that sweet spot that I was in before. I'm going to make a leap back because I know how to get back there.
Yeah.
That's something that's another like secondary fear that some people have is like, I've already gotten this level of success. I have to keep it, but you
Well,
can
I
leap
don't
back.
think
You know?
and I had some people look at me and they're like, "Oh, well, the people who know me, I'm still good," and
Yeah.
but they some people were like, "Oh, you're not as much out there as much as you used to be." It's like, but I have more freedom, I make more money. To me,
Yeah.
this is more successful. So I to me, I don't care what I look like to other people. I mean,
Yeah.
I want people to come to me for my coaching so I can help people and, do the owner financing and all that. Cause like my whole thing, I love helping people. I want to see people do better. It just,
Yeah.
that's what excites me. That's what gets me going. It's not having a huge team or a huge office or anything. I want to see people say that changed my life or and that's been a lot of my students. They'll be like, I was on child support. I couldn't even afford. I was living in the basement. And now I've got all this money coming in. I bought all these heavy equipment. Now I got other side businesses. And like, I'm just seeing these people's lives change. And that's what gets me going. So you got to
Yeah.
know what like gets you going and not be worried about how everybody else wants to think about you. Because you're always going to have somebody thinking you don't even have to do anything. There's going to be people who don't like you.
Yeah.
So you just have to just like yourself.
No, I completely agree. And like knowing exactly what you want out of the life that you want to build for yourself, you're constructing a life, right? You're constructing
Mhm.
something that brings you the right work-life balance, the right amount of money, all of it. And so when you know what that is, like, it doesn't matter if somebody has works 5 less hours or has $1 million more, as long as you're in a place in your life that you're really happy with, that's phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
So,
and how much money do you really need? Like
well,
some
right.
people are like, I
Yeah.
get in these rooms and people are talking huge money. I'm like, how much do you really need? I mean, like,
Yeah.
and you can have as much as you want, but like, it's like some people are like just chasing after something, and I'm like, it's not money you're chasing after. There's something else deeper than that, honey. Because like, I actually think that a lot of entrepreneurs are traumatized people. that
Really?
have picked entrepreneurship as their addiction.
Oh, I
And
see. Yeah.
so they're constantly chasing something, and it's feeding them in certain ways that those accomplishments, but it's the accomplishment and that dopamine release they get from having all these accomplishments and feeling important and all that. And it's like they keep on chasing for more of that. And it's like, but what is it? What's really going on? Can you be okay with yourself? Are you even
Right.
happy with yourself at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Like you can keep chasing as much as you want. You can make all the money in the world, but you're going to be lonely and unhappy with yourself until you like start focusing on yourself and face what that is that's going on inside of you. Feel like you got to keep on chasing after so much stuff. But that's like my view of it. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I think.
No, I'm with you, and but yeah, I've definitely seen that where it becomes almost an addiction. And if you get some joy out of that, okay, but certainly I do think sometimes certain times people come into this and they want freedom of time and they
Mhm.
want a lifestyle business enough to just really kind of fund living the way they want to live, and 8 masterminds and 24 events and a $40,000 marketing budget later, they're like, wait, how did I get here? I
I know, yeah.
you know so
That's how I felt.
yeah.
It's like, wait a second, what happened? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I know that for people that are listening into this and are like, I want to do that. I want to flip some affordable homes. I want to get some owner financing to get my monthly income coming in. Um, I believe you have an 8-week coaching course coming up on May 1st. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
so give us a little detail about that. And then for everybody listening or watching this on YouTube, check the episode descriptions. We'll put sign up links for that in the episode description so you can so that you can connect with Mitzi directly. But yeah, give us a little bit of detail about what that entails.
And thank you. Thank you for this
Mhm.
opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's going to be it's going to be all virtual. So no matter where you are, you're good to go. You just need to know your state's regulations. But it's going to be 8 weeks long. One time a week, we're going to have a Zoom call with me on there with you guys. We're going to have pre-recorded videos, scripts, contracts, everything that you need to know. And then we're also going to help you go through like my thing that I'll tell you guys right now is if you follow the system I show you, if you do not get a deal and make your money back for what you spent, I will give you your money back. But you have to prove that you followed my system
Yeah.
because I know it works. You have to almost make it, you have to like almost not want to make a deal happen if you follow the
Yeah.
system, what I give you. But you'll have a system that works, that's been proven, and you'll be learning how to wholesale mobile homes and at least get your first one owner financed, get you set up
No,
in
I
that first 8
I
weeks.
love that. For anybody looking, talking about making leaps, um, a guided leap where somebody is keeping tabs on you and making sure that you're following all the steps. That's leaping with a zip line, not just leaping. Like you got something to hang on to. So
Yeah,
it's
it's all
it's
about accountability because you could YouTube. Now you're going to be probably overwhelmed with everything that everybody's saying on YouTube,
yeah,
but I'm going to help clarify what you really need to do, what steps you need to take, and you're going to have your hand held, but you're going to be told you're going to be the one having to do it.
yeah.
Like so you're going to have somebody to come to whenever you have questions, and you're going to be accountable for doing your part so you can make it happen. And that's the thing that you don't get when you're by yourself or just watching YouTube videos. You don't have that. And that's pretty much what I offer is helping you make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, look, there are plenty of quote unquote coaches in the real estate space that maybe wholesale one house a year, 2 houses a year because it falls in their lap, but they run a media company and they run a
Yeah.
coaching company, and they're
Yeah.
not actively participating in real estate investment, or at least not anymore. Maybe they were at one point, but they've really transitioned into being just in the media game. And so when you can
Yeah.
learn from somebody that is doing this at the same time that you are, just at a far higher level and at a more higher rate of success, grab that opportunity. So this is an opportunity to learn in a real-time environment from somebody who's doing it better than anybody in the business. So jump at the opportunity, y'all.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yeah,
Michael.
no, it has been a pleasure having you on. We're going to put all of the links to your companies and of course to this 8-week training course below. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of keep in touch and see how this thing grows, because it's a very, very interesting little niche within the real estate investment space.
Hmm. Yeah, and if you're tired of fighting after over leads that everyone else is going after, if you're tired of like people being emotionally attached to their properties or whatever, this is really a great space to be in too.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for your
much.
time today. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Michael.